Hey there, everybody. It is Harcion here, and for those of you who are new to my channel, you might know this, but one of my favorite decks of all time is Trickstars. It's one of my favorite competitive decks. I love the art style. I love the play style. Not so much for the degenerate stuff. I like the drill and lock combo when it works. It's a really good win condition in a way, but it's just not super consistent, and I don't like having to do it to my opponents. Like, it feels really good to do, but it still feels very degenerate. So it's not something that I like to do, but it's something that if I have it, I will do it because it wins games. Although the past couple times I've tried to do it, my opponents have been able to come back. Not so much power creep, but just because of the way the format is right now. It's not a very good thing to get going second. It's a very, like, if you go first and you get it, you win, but otherwise you might as well just side out the drill and locks. But anyway, I kind of wanted to talk about, like, the position the Trickstar deck is in right now. It's sort of in a very stagnant position. It's stagnated a whole lot. Like, there is not much innovation in the deck. And part of that is because there was no new Trickstar support in the newest set. Like whenever the I can't even remember her right now. The one that, like, burns for hand traps and grave effects. Whenever she came out, she saw, like, a little bit of play the first couple weeks, and then we didn't see her anymore. Because, honestly, she's not super good of a card. If she had been, like, 500 or 600 damage for that, she would have been, like, busted and, like, FTK potential, maybe. But as she is right now, like, she's good for if you're doing some link spam, but otherwise, she's not that great. So we have more Trickstar support coming out in Flames of Destruction. Again, it's a lot more link-oriented. I'm definitely going to be buying a box of Flames of Destruction to try and do some new builds with Bella Madonna and stuff like that. But the way the deck is right now has really stagnated, and I feel like it's a problem. And it's not just a problem for Trickstars, but it's a problem for the format as a whole. Because people, like, Pendulum Magicians is a huge deck right now, but Pendulum Magicians have a lot of variants. Like, you can do a build that's built around the FTK. You can do a build that's based around, spamming out Astrograph. You can do a build that, like, builds 4 negates. You can do a build that just does 2 negates and a couple big beat sticks. Like, it has several things it can do. Trickstars right now, and I'm going to put up some some pictures of some of the deck lists, just the main decks. I'm getting these from YugiOhTopDecks.com, so these are just the ones that have been reported, but these are some of the top decks from the past few months. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of variation between the decks. A lot of the variation comes between, like, how many copies of Eater Millions or Scapegoat do you play. Some builds do 3 and 3, some builds do 3 and 2, some builds do a 2 and 3. This guy, who is Vladis Baranovskis, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. Anyway, he got 3rd place in a regional in Dublin, and he was doing a small spiral engine. He had Super Agent Resort and Set Rotation, just so that he could do, like, a rank 4 toolbox. But other than that, like most Trickstar deck lists, there's not very much variation. Like, this deck list, and I know there was a tournament a while back where, like, 2 identical card-for-card Trickstar lists top, and I think those guys actually built their decks together and they were friends. But it's one of those things where it's just super weird to see, like, a deck that, like, some decks there's going to be your core that you have and then your core trap lineup. Like, this one has 3 Reincarnation, 3 Solemn Strike. This one has a Judgment of Strike and a Torrential Tribute. Like, that sort of thing is slightly different between the decks. I think the one what was it? I remember seeing one a little while back that was playing 3 copies of Terraforming. I don't know if it's on here or not. But, like, there's very little variation in Trickstar decks. So here, this one's slightly different. It's the Carlisle, England regional. He's playing Cyframe Gear Gamma. But still, that's not like a huge... Like, that's just a hand trap. That's not like an entirely different way to play the deck. You'll see a couple of mind controls. Some people are playing Monster Born, some people aren't. Oh, he was also playing the Super Agent engine, so maybe that's something I'll try out. Maybe I'll try out just putting in the one Super Agent and the one Resort and seeing how that engine works just to try something different. But the deck has become very linear in a way, to where, like, the optimal move is, you know, get out your Light Stage, get out your Candina, get your Lycoris and summon Lycoris, and then hopefully you have an extra resource in there to where you can grab the Reincarnation. And then that's your turn. You just get out Lycoris and you do Reincarnation. Like, people aren't doing the chain summoning combo anymore. A lot of people, like I myself, have dropped the chain summoning combo. I dropped the I dropped Dawn Thousand's Throne. I dropped the Dark Room of Nightmare, because they're less they make the deck less consistent, but I feel like that lowers the ceiling as well. And lowering the ceiling makes the deck a lot worse, in my opinion, even though it's still... It's super consistent now. What it does perfectly, and it's still topping everything. Eater of Millions fixed most of the problems with the deck. Scapegoat fixed most of the other problems of the deck. So those two cards right there are kind of what is making the deck run right now. And I don't really like that for a deck, that it's not so much based around its own strategies. It's sort of based around kind of techie cards. But it's not really even a tech, because like 99% of the Trickstar decks are running this right now. And like, these were cards that I even came into my own, like when I was just playing around with them, putting them in there. And it wasn't even like because I was looking at these top decks. Like, these were just cards I ended up putting in there to put in there because they were good cards, and they fix all the problems with the deck. But when you're just playing around with stuff and you end up with a build that is like the same 90% build that everyone else is playing, it's really bad for the deck, in my opinion, because it makes the deck stale, it makes the deck stagnant. Like, the other problem is that it makes the decks really linear, to where if your opponent knows what you're playing, they know where to stop it, which hand traps to use when, and which plays to counter, and like, they have a good idea what your lineup is going to be and what they need to side deck. For instance, if they know you're playing Trickstars, they're going to side in probably Chaos Hunters, and probably Twin Twisters is a really good card against Trickstar, because not only does it take 2 cards out of your hand for when they use Reincarnation, but it hits Light Stage as well. So that's getting rid of their Light Stage. And it's also giving you a resource in the graveyard that you wouldn't have otherwise, which gives you an extra card to be able to play. And that's just a really annoying card whenever I'm playing and someone uses Twin Twisters. It's not as common now because most people are using Galaxy Cyclone, which isn't as good against them, since really Light Stage is the only thing you need to hit. Twin Twist is much better against Trickstars than Cyclone is, especially because you don't really want to be paying that life points, because that's just asking you to dive to the burn damage even faster. But still, it's a deck where it's like, okay, you can have like maybe one, like maybe you'll play Light Stage and that'll bait out the Ash, or maybe you'll play Desires and that'll bait out the Ash, and then you can Candine it safely. But there's not a whole lot of things that you can really do with the deck, and I feel like that's a problem. Just for the deck as a whole. Like, I know, I think it was Simo that talked a little while back about the Disruption engine, where it was like Candina and then like 1 Light Stage, 1 Candina, 1 Reincarnation or something like that. I don't know, that might work, but I feel like that's a little too situational. I guess it kind of worked if you guys saw that like field spell deck or whatever that topped the San Diego regional. Got like second place. I'll put it up on the screen. It was like a bunch of field spells and then a bunch of cards that worked with those field spells. Like it had Trickstars, it had Invoked, it had Subterrors, it had Dinosaurs. It was just a really fun, it was a hilarious and a pretty solid deck. I feel like Paleo would have been a bad matchup for it because they can have like they play that one trap that's like Imperial Order or whatever that just negates spell effects. I feel like that would have been a bad matchup for it, but otherwise it was a pretty solid deck. Yeah, that's just my opinions on the subject. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like Trickstars have gotten kind of stale. Like, don't get me wrong, I still love the deck and I love the archetype, but I feel like we're gonna need to wait for, like, Flames of Destruction to come out or something to spice them up a bit. I've been playing around with their new Link monster, the Crimson Heart, but I still haven't really been getting a lot of mileage out of it. I'm not really sure. It's like helped me extend, but getting rid of a Lycurus to summon it just isn't super good. Like 9 times out of 10. Like until we get the new support, there's not really a lot of things that you want to discard. And especially until we get like Magic Corolla or whatever that's their premature burial, we don't even want the monsters in the graveyard that much. I think once we get that new support, I think the deck will get a little bit more life breathed into it. But who knows? This is mostly just speculation. I really hope the deck gets out of this stagnation, even if it's just like a slight variant. Like, even if it's just like the main variant and then a Link variant also running around. Like, I would still very much like that as opposed to what it is now, where there's like one build. Like one build with like 2 tech slots that everyone's running. But that's just my opinion. Leave a like down below or give me some comments and tell me what you guys think. Do you think Trickstars are fine where they're at right now? I know a lot of people still really don't like the deck. Do you like where it's at right now? Because it's easy to counter. Because you can like immediately use a hand trap to disrupt their plays. Or do you prefer it to be do you still think they need ban? I don't even think Trickstars need hit anymore, honestly. They aren't topping enough to make it super relevant. Like, even Reincarnation isn't even as much of a problem as it was before. So, I don't know. Leave me some feedback, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content. I might do a deck profile in the future, but like say, there really isn't much changes to make unless I figure out something really interesting. I've been wanting to try some builds with like Christia or something, but I'm not sure. So I will check you guys out later.